let us all do we can to build a better future. So, folks, I'm going to use a controversial word. It's called simp.
Oh.
Now, what do you think when you hear the word simp, Farron?
Elon Musk.
Well, he does have a type.
Too soon?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty relevant. You know, but let's face it, you know, it is a mean word. And, you know, it's something that I think the audience needs to know. So a simp is someone who does way too much for a person that they like. You know, they lift up Olympus. And I think with this tweet and this video, any respect I had for Bernard Sanders is long since gone. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, we have this wonderful tweet from Joe30330, the senile old man leading us to World War III. Look, Jack, the opponents suing to stop my plan are the only thing standing between millions of Americans crushing student debt and relief. It's frustrating, and I won't stop fighting to get it done in the courts. Allow me and my friend to explain. Now, again, we've covered this before, that Joe wasn't going to do anything about student debt forgiveness. And there's a lot that Joe Biden can do, especially through executive order. Remember, he was against student debt forgiveness. But here, if you ever had any respect for Bernard Sanders, look away, children. It's terrible. Look away. Look away. But if you're brave, you might cry.
Right now, we're 40.
Oh, by the way, real quick, Montana really, the edge of Montana really does look like Biden sniffing Idaho. So there you go. just wanted to throw that out there too.
Million Americans eligible for debt relief are being denied that immediate relief today. Why? Because Republican officials and special interests hit us with lawsuits to block it. Folks, I know you're frustrated. I am as well.
And I am too. For millions of working and middle-class Americans who are under the burden of crushing loan debt, student debt relief would be life-changing. And guess what? Because of these Republican officials, not even one of the over 80,000 people from Delaware, where I know you're from, Joe, who applied for student debt relief.
You heard what he said, right? I put it right there. Like, they didn't even edit that part out. Did you hear that, Farron? Oh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I think you might be muted.
I always do that. My audience knows me when I do that. I try to mute myself for coughs because I have this terrible cough still.
Oh, okay.
And then I always forget to unmute. But what is with these two camera angles? You know, like, they're already confused enough. They're already old as hell.
Yeah.
Don't confuse them with these two camera angles. And then, yeah, I'll put it right there.
Yeah. So hold on. I just want
There's
everyone.
a meme.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no, Farron. That's not family friendly. That's not family friendly at all.
No, that's not. No.
Where I know you're from, Joe, who applied for student debt relief or were eligible for automatic loan forgiveness, have been able to get a dime of that relief.
The fact is that in Vermont, Bernie, it's over 50,000 borrowers. 50,000 borrowers. And what about bigger states? How about the state of Texas and the state of Missouri?
Well, Joe, it'd be over 2 million and close to 500,000 borrowers, respectively. The list goes on.
In state after state, no matter what these Republican officials say, we know student debt relief will make a real difference for people. We're going to get it done. It's good policy. The law's on our side, and we're doing the right thing. We're going to get it done.
And I didn't hear any of these Republican officials complaining when the government gave huge tax breaks to big corporations. But here they are, stopping relief for working families.
No, we're fighting like hell to get this done. We're in court next month, so keep the faith and spread the faith.
Oh, God. That's so pathetic.
You know, I always say DC, this town, it's like Hollywood, but it's show business for ugly people. Now it's show business for ugly and old people. I mean, that was probably one of the worst performances I've ever seen. And by the way, like, you, with all the money that Washington, D.C. has, okay, you bring out a map and put on Post-it notes. That's how you're going to tell us?
Well, see, okay,
nothing else.
Well, okay, so there's a couple of perspectives to look at. There are a couple of ways to look at this video. Number one, if you were a diehard Bernie Sanders supporter, or a delegate, or you did everything you could to sacrifice your time, money, and resources to help him out in 2016 and 2020, know this: you were suckered and scammed. Okay, Bernie was never going to fight for you. There he is, was his good friend Joe. His good friend Joe, who was always on the wrong side of history. Remember, Bernie, you were there marching alongside the protesters and activists during the civil rights movement. Where was Joe Biden at? Oh, he was against the civil rights movement. He was against busing and desegregation. He was against Roe v. Wade. You know, he was for the war in Iraq, voted for it, created the student debt system that we are in, Bernie. Your good friend, Bernie. Bernie, that's your friend, who sided with the credit card corporations to make student debt what it is. He is responsible for the creation of the prison industrial complex, the crime bill, the one that even Bill Clinton, old Bill Clinton, even apologized. And that's not saying much. That's your friend. And see, the thing is, everyone's still holding on to hope that somehow Bernard Sanders is going to be that guy that's going to win the White House, or his political revolution is going to take place and somehow win over the Democratic Party. Yeah, it's easy to blame the Republican Party. It's easy to go after the Republican politicians in the U.S. Senate and House. But hey, Bernie, are you going to talk about the same Democratic lawmakers, people like Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Boy Schumer, who have been doing everything as well to stop student debt forgiveness? Joe Biden was against student debt forgiveness. Even during the primary, during the debates, your friend was against it. And this student debt forgiveness of $10K to $20K, I want everyone to understand, while I am all for it, that's not going to do anything about the interest. The problem will still remain. People will still be struggling with student debt. There's not going to be a debt jubilee. Joe Biden will never do that. And yet they're saying they're going to fight. Name an incident or a situation where the Democrat Party, people like Bernie, fight. AOC said that he has exceeded expectations, but yet you have so many cucks in the neoliberal left that want to say, oh, we got to vote for Biden, or we have to support Bernie, or hey, let's support Marianne Williamson, of all people.
Yeah, she wants to start a a peace department for Ukraine. Marianne Williamson. I was like, that's like, but mind you, yeah, she wants to start a peace department for Ukraine, but wants to give them more weapons. I'm like, that's like starting a virginity department and then giving everybody condoms. Like, give me a break.
You know what it is. It's just people are so blindsided and still have their rose-colored glasses on from 2016 and 2020 because everyone, look, even I was swept up in 2016 of Bernie Sanders challenging the establishment. But as you look back at it, he was never going to do it. Never once did Bernie Sanders acknowledge the election fraud that took place in 2016 and 2020 when the DNC worked not once but twice with their corporate pick to deny any kind of fair standing in any of the states in which his supporters can go vote for him. And that's Bernie Sanders. But the thing is, you have these people on the left that say, well, we got to hold Bernie Sanders in high regards because he's going to fight for them. Farron, this might twist your stomach a little bit, but I think it's only fair that we show these wonderful two people who are going to tell you, my viewing audience, to shut up and grow up. Because you can't run third party. Stop challenging the Democrats. They're doing all they can. Remember, they're wearing glasses, so they know better. Look,
oh God,
Jordan Sheraton and Crystal Ball. I can see Kyle in the background running in his diapers.
What do you say to people who are critical of Marianne or anyone that's going to run again within the Democratic Party?
I think you put it perfectly, Jordan. How did Bernie Sanders do? How close did he get to the White House? How close did the Green Party get to the White House? It's simple. I mean, we don't have to, like, I don't know if people have noticed, there's a lot of crises going on in the world. There's a far-right movement basically trying to end democracy in our
far-right movement, but don't forget the Democratic Party's been helping it out too, Jordan Sheraton and Crystal Ball. I mean, you better acknowledge that. I mean, you have that corporate flag right behind you, Jordan boy. I mean, that's the same flag that the DNC salutes too.
You know, working people are suffering every single day. We've got a climate crisis that's unfolding. I mean, continued insane instances of police brutality that just make you want to weep and scream and your stomach churn. And they want to wait.
And remember, Crystal, Biden said about the police department, fund them. Fund them. Fund them. Do you remember that, Crystal? No, probably not. You know, you're busy taking care of your new baby, Kyle.
Wait around for some theoretical revolution. I'm sorry, grow up, get serious. This is a actual path to having an impact on the issues that you claim to care about. Now, if you've got another candidate, you got another strategy, please, I'm all ears. But the reality of the American political system today is we have a first past the post voting system that makes it virtually impossible for third-party candidates to compete.
Now, here's the thing about the third-party system, all right? We have a horrible system at the state and federal level that denies Green Party candidates, Libertarian candidates, independent candidates from actually being on the ballot on the debate stage. And the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have been doing everything they can to stop you, my fellow Americans, from actually having another party to vote for or true independents to vote for. And yet, what are we supposed to do, Jordan and Crystal? Just vote blue? The vote blue no matter who is the biggest con. Vote blue no matter who is telling basically what it means for all of you listening is to shut up, eat this crap sandwich, and maybe you might get some things. But what has the Democratic Party delivered on, including people like AOC and Bernie Sanders? I mean, Roe v. Wade died under a Democratic administration. And if this happened under Trump, people would be protesting in the streets right now. Nothing's being done about student debt, cannabis legalization. We're not getting Medicare for all. It's we got a crumbling infrastructure, but yet we have a lot of money that's for this war to which both the Democratic Party and Republican Party are supporting. So, in other words, Jordan and Crystal, why the hell should any of us even consider wasting our time voting Democrat? Do you want to add in something before I play the rest of the video?
Well, no, go ahead and keep playing. Let's hear what other crap they got to say.
For that, do I wish that we had a different political? Of course I do. That's not reality. So we can either grow up and get serious about actually wanting to have power in order to impact the issues and the people that we want to have an impact on, or we can sit around and talk to each other and make videos, you know, trashing people who agree with us on 95% of the issues and pretend like they're horrible people. We can do this like internecine circle jerk forever, or we can actually get serious and have a plan and try to do something.
Oh, I thought I was the only one that calls it a circle jerk.
I stole that from you. Sorry, Jordan.
Guys, quit talking about circle jerking there for a second.
Yeah, that's what you guys do to each other.
Yeah, well, it is. And the thing is, look, there they are thinking like they know better because, guess what? They get to have the connections, sit in their nice little studios, wag their finger and say, oh, minorities, you need to understand that you have to vote Democrat. Oh, poor people, you got to vote Democrat because they care more about you. Stop challenging the system. Grow up. It's time for everyone to grow up. So that means all their talk way back when was nothing but a way for them to build up an audience, scam people out of money. Of course, I wouldn't say scam, but just fool people out of money. And in other words, just tell you, hey, vote Democrat, vote Democrat. All the while, the same crimes that the Republican Party has been doing and will continue to do, the Democratic Party has been doing that as well. So in other words, here's what I'm going to say to my audience. If you want to vote Democrat, fine. But notice, you're contributing to a two-party system that's been robbing and stealing from you for decades. Same thing with the Republican Party. You want to vote Republican? Fine. That's on you, all right? But remember, if you're going to start complaining, all I'm going to say to you, Democratic voters and Republican voters, is take off your sunglasses and show me that shiner because you're in an abusive relationship. I encourage my audience to think freely, support citizen ballot initiatives, vote independent, vote third party. You really want to make a difference? Don't listen to these two telling you, oh, it's time to grow up. No, because every time we wait for the Democrats, we get screwed over. Every time they tell us to halt, wait, we need to be pragmatic. No, we don't have time to be pragmatic. There are millions of Americans suffering right now, and there is a lack of action, on purpose, mind you, by the Democratic Party.
Bullshit on the left.
That's it. And, you know, I've like been nice about it for a long time, but at some point I'm like, look, let's grow up and be real about the political system that we operate in and not have some like, you know, imaginary theoretical revolution that's going to happen at some point in the distant future. We don't have time for that shit. Like, stop tearing down people who are actually trying to do something. If you've got a different plan, be my guest. Go do it. Put up your candidates. Run your race. Whatever your start, go do it by all means. But I'm just not going to sit by and watch people trying to tear everybody down who is interested in having any kind of positive impact.
I think there's another.
Okay, yeah, all right, enough from those two. Enough from those two. So again, you know, before I pull up this next video, I'm only going to play 2 minutes of it because that's as far as I'm willing to sit through it. But Farron, I want to get your thoughts on both Jordan Chariton and Crystal Kuklinski talking about everyone to grow up and we got to vote Democrat, support the DNC.
You know, with Crystal Ball, do I think she's good as far as making her good political talking points? Like, excuse me, like on breaking points? Yeah. But time and time again, every time she was the big Bernie Sanders. She was the big one for Bernie again in 2020. And then when all else fails, she is that vote blue no matter who. And for her to say like it's time to grow up, like you should have been saying this after 2016. Like if you're you know, I'm just not going to deal with it anymore. And it's 2023, and now you're not going to deal with it when you've been dealing with it since what, 7 years ago? You know, like it's one of these things where I look at it and a lot of these folks you can start to see more and more are just shills for, you know, their big wig parties or, you know, the corporate party or whatever. You know, like I'm even watching, you know, I used to watch Breaking Points a lot for her and Sagar's commentary because I thought it was like, okay, like they're, you know, pretty independent and they're doing it. No, now they're basically corporate. Like they're basically just the same exact thing, but trying to like paint this, you know, this veneer of, oh yeah, like we're so independent. That's why we're gonna fight the mainstream media together. And it's like, no, you are it, and you are stumping for your party. And so like whenever I just hear Crystal talk about a lot of this stuff, it kind of goes in one ear out the other for me. I just take like the facts that she says. If I hear a numbers thing, I'm like, okay, I'll remember that. But anything as far as like her opinion, I'm just like, no thanks. Like you've proven yourself time and time again that you literally will bow in the face of adversity when it comes to just winning an election. And I don't think that that's the way to be anymore.
No,
personally.
And the thing is, I support third parties. I support independents. I support citizen ballot initiatives. And I encourage my audience to do the same and to know your rights as a voter. But remember, again, consistency is key. I said on the show, I'm a free speech absolutist. I support third parties. I support independents. And I support citizen ballot initiatives. These are things that I've said, and I believe in them because they're important, especially in this day and age of absolute censorship and hypocrisy from our two-party system. I will not waste my time praising or playing fear politics by saying, oh, you got to vote Republican because they care about family values and freedom, or, oh, you got to vote Democrat because they care about the social issues and democracy. Neither party believes in that or believes and supports or respects the American people. They support their constituents. No, not you, the voter, but big banks and corporations. So 2 years ago, matter of fact, even a little bit later than that, in 2020, on March 11th, even old Crystal Ball said on TYT, of all places, TYT, that vote blue, no matter who, is a con. So, gee, Crystal, I guess when it's no longer lucrative or you feel like you're in a position to start talking down to people, you could change your opinion. And hey, we all change our opinions, but here she is. Crystal Ball, vote blue, no matter who, is a con. And this was her in 2020 with good old fat Tony. I mean, Cenk Uygur.
Bernie Sanders make a mistake in not going negative. So conventional wisdom is, oh, don't go negative. People will criticize you. So what? They criticize Bernie Sanders whether he goes negative or floats on a cloud. It doesn't matter at all. They call him a socialist, communist, Cuba-loving, vile, rude guy anyway. So it's not just on trade. He did not point out Joe Biden's record on civil rights. He lied about civil rights record. Joe Biden did dozens of times. He lied about getting arrested in South Africa, battling apartheid, and the '94 crime bill. He, bragged about that everyone but jaywalkers would get the death penalty. So, since the mainstream media is so overwhelmingly biased, they were never, ever, ever going to cover that. And Bernie knows that, but he chose not to do it because what? It'd be rude or it was risky strategy. With the benefit of hindsight, that was clearly a mistake, wasn't it?
Here's the thing. Bernie was never going to fight back, folks. I mean, how many times have we seen Bernie Sanders be a cuck to the media? I remember in Philadelphia, before Daniel and I snuck inside the Wells Fargo Center, we were, I think we were at the Hard Rock Cafe. We were getting some lunch. And then my phone starts buzzing. And it's a friend of mine who's like a very diehard Bernie Sanders supporter, was very happy that Daniel and I were in Philly in 2016. And they sent me this message. Dude, what's up with the Washington Post? And I went to check it out. They did 16 negative articles about Bernie Sanders in one goddamn day. But see, that's just scratching the surface. Throughout all of 2016, corporate media smeared Bernie Sanders, smeared his supporters, called a lot of his supporters straight white males. You know, there is a large, diverse group of Bernie Sanders supporters and voters that would beg to differ, corporate media. But even Bernie Sanders never stuck his neck out for them. Bernie Sanders didn't do anything. And we saw firsthand at the Wells Fargo Center how there were snipers pointing their guns at people who were protesting. And it was what the DNC was doing at the convention center. Did Bernie Sanders stick his neck out for his people then? No, he did not. Did Bernie Sanders bring the ruckus at the DNC Convention Center in Philadelphia in 2016? No, he did not. He bent over backwards, took off his pants, spread his cheeks, and said, here you go, Hillary Clinton, stick it in deep. Now, if I'm being too offensive or being too graphic, I don't really care. And I'll tell you why. Because so many people spent so much money, wasted so much of their time on a man that wouldn't fight for them. And yet, these individuals, way back when, TYT, Majority Report, Kyle, Mild Malinsky, Crystal, and everyone, were all on board of, yes, where was the Bernie train? We're for the revolution. Oh, yeah, we got to do something. We got a plan. But as soon as they started getting closer to the establishment, as soon as they started to realize that, oh, we want to have access to the Democrats, we want to have access in D.C., they changed their tune. Because it should tell all of you that they didn't really believe in half the crap that they were even saying in the first place. They didn't. They never will. Unless Crystal would like to explain her reasonings, on our show, I'm more than welcome to. Always happy to have a differing opinion from the neoliberal left.
Yeah, of course. And look, I don't want to be too harsh. Hindsight is always 2020. And I think this is just partly who Bernie Sanders is, right? He was never comfortable even with Hillary Clinton, who he had much less of a substantive relationship with, of going hard against her, right? Nobody cares about your damn emails, Hillary, all of that. That didn't do any service to Democratic voters. But yeah, ultimately, this obviously was a case that should have been made, needed to be made. And I think there was some complacency after Biden's weak results in the early states that he was done, that he was finished. The concern moved on to Michael Bloomberg. That obviously turned out to be a paper tiger. And here we are. I do want to look forward, though. And I think this is really important. We've all got to push to make sure this debate happens on Sunday. Results are very tough tonight. But, I think we need to play that out and see what happens there and keep pushing forward. But if Joe Biden is the nominee, I think we've also got to realize that this whole vote blue no matter who thing is a complete con.
Whoa, Crystal, that's violence.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a con. But sadly, there are many people who are still suckered in being simps for Bernie Sanders as Bernie Sanders simps the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here you have Crystal and Jordan telling everyone to grow up. You see Bernie there jumping for joy, being there with his friend Joe Biden. And then when we go back in time, we see a different tune from a lot of these people. Farron, your thoughts on this? Because I know you've been in D.C. You've seen the Democratic Party. You've seen people. You've seen AOC even drive a freaking Tesla. But oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. She hates Elon Musk.
Yeah. I remember Crystal, back in the day, like when, everything was, I remember her coming up during the Bernie phases and stuff like that. The problem is that, I liked how she called it like a paper tiger. Like, that's kind of how I see her arguments. Here she's going on and on about, what everybody should do and all this other crap. And it's like, at the end of the day, though, again, like I said, like, it's just hollow. You always go back to, okay, we'll vote blue because I can't have red in the office. And like the other thing too is that, when you see a lot of those folks like your TYTs, like the breaking points, like where they start getting way more into their corporate donors, it's obvious, but they have to still give you like those talking points to make it feel like they're being real with you. But also, like, for example, like you want to talk about like just what shills they are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When Russia first invaded Ukraine, okay, Crystal and Sagar on Breaking Points were basically sitting there saying that we need to do whatever we can. We need to send them as much money as they need, whatever they need. You know, if the United States has to take a hit, like, do that. And now Americans are waking up and realizing like that probably was one of the worst ideas. Now that we're going to send fighter jets,
tanks, artillery, and more.
And then looking at possibly World War III, it's like, to what ends are you trying to justify the means, you know? But the thing that was funny though, is like when they immediately came out that way, and it wasn't because, you know, I was pro Russia or anything. It was just, you have to step back and look at the 10,000 foot view of what's going on and be like, okay, is this a good idea? Is this not? Should we get involved? You know, we're both openly anti-war. So my thing was no. But, you know, immediately jumping onto it. And that's what the people that shill for the defense departments do. And the military industrial complex. And that's when I realized, I was like, you guys are freaking compromised. The fact that you aren't even like just stopping, as you guys are so independent and taking a step back and looking at everything and trying to get the lay of the land, you immediately are just like, we need to do whatever the hell we need to do. I was like, I'm done. And now it's hilarious now when they're coming back and they're like, well, you know, how much are we going to spend, you know, with high gas prices, and Putin's over there fine with, well, the gas prices, and, you know, we have all these homeless people and we can't take care of them. And I'm like, oh, so now you finally removed your head from your ass, and now you're actually thinking like a real person and a real American, and you're finally seeing what people are going through. And that's where, just with a lot of these folks, they're not on the ground. They don't listen to people. They listen to like what their corporate masters tell them, but they're not actually out there listening to the you know, the American people. You know, when was the last time that Crystal Ball was at a rally for anything? You know, unless she's getting paid to be there and, you know, and give her talking points or whatever, like, she ain't going to a rally to go talk to people. Whereas you and I, we've been at protests, we've been out with people talking. Even in this latest censorship deal on Twitter, I mean, people reaching out to me left and right, who are just regular people on Twitter saying like, I don't like this, you know, like, I'm a survivor of sexual assault, or I've gotten my account dinged now. You know, it's like, they're not on the ground. And when people who call themselves journalists or, you know, all this, they're not on the ground doing it, I don't have any respect. And I'm just like, nah, I don't really care what you're saying. You know, I just realize, it's like, I realize you're reading from your little teleprompter in your brain of what they're supposed to tell you. So good job. You did a great job repeating what you're supposed to do.
The Democratic Party will not listen to you until you stop voting for them. That's something Lawrence O'Donnell said. When it comes down to the Democrats, because here's the thing. Until then, Bernie and AOC are going to keep on getting away with this. So what I want to tell my viewing audience is, you don't owe these politicians a goddamn thing, because they don't like you. They don't think about you. They don't respect you. You don't owe these politicians anything. You deserve so much more. And so if you really want to wreck the system, register as independent, vote third parties, support citizen ballot initiatives. If you live in a ballot initiative state, know your rights as a voter and break away from the two-party system. Both parties don't care about you and they don't respect you. And people like Bernie Sanders will let you down. He didn't deserve the support back then, and he doesn't deserve all this praise now, because he's working with the same party that's screwing you over.